Well, I've got to get to the studio. You know, our religion, our faith, has to address the environment, has to address the community, has to address issues of poverty. What are some of the things you liked about Chicago?
Oh, the Art Institute.
And one of the things I know that you and I share is Chicago.
This is true.
Really distinct goals. Our primary interest was in campaign finance reform, but we were also interested in election law and in civil union.
Have better and cleaner politics in Oregon. Man, good to have you on Speaking Frankly. You know, that's the thing is, we as human beings live together on this planet Earth.
Right.
We also live together in our societies, in our nations, in our communities.
Welcome, Yamhill County. This is Speaking Frankly, and I'm not Frank Nelson. I'm Howie Harkema. I'm going to be filling in for Frank for the summer, and Barbara and Frank are going to be traveling all across America. So it's great to be with you, Yamhill County, and some of the things that I'm going to be doing this summer, interview-wise, are politics, business leaders, service providers, ministries, and community members. So thank you for joining us, and today we are really lucky to have Debra Bridges as my first interview. And so I'm going to welcome Debra Bridges.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Great to have you with us. So most of you know Debra. Debra, you've been Director of Crime Victim Services for 9 years for the Yamhill County District Attorney, and advocate for at-risk children for the Yamhill County Commission for Children and Families. Also the director of the United Way of Yamhill County, volunteered for Yamhill County Habitat for Humanity, the SMART program, which means start making a reader today, YCAP, which is the Yamhill Community Action Partnership, Homeward Bound, CASA, Rotary, and Newburgh School District. You've set statewide policies on crime prevention services, on Oregon Attorney General's Sexual Assault Task Force, and you were the president of the Crime Victim Assistance Network. You're also a wife and mother of two daughters, and you just finished a run at Yamhill County position number 3 county commissioner's seat. Wow. When do you sleep?
I try to fit it in.
Just once in a while, right?
It's probably not a big priority for me.
Evidently not. Well, the first question that I have is, after Mary Stern and your husband, John, helped convince you to run for that position, what were the steps that you had to take initially?
Well, it was actually Christmas 2012 when both my husband and Mary talked with me about this position, and I hadn't really been thinking about the transition that was going to be coming up in 2015 with 2 Board of Commissioners leaving. And having had a relatively stable board for the last 12 years with Lewis, Stern, and George, I started thinking about it a little bit, but then had some real reservations about leaving a job that I really love, working with crime victims. And then I started spending some time thinking about what that would mean and really what the role of the commissioner is, and felt that, you know, maybe I did have some skills to put towards that position. And so then it really came down to just really making that decision to say, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to sort of jump off that ledge and sort of be brave to face the unknown. And I did it, and I am so glad that I did. While I wish the outcome had been different, I think this has been an amazing experience. And so there were a lot of initial first steps: filing, getting a campaign committee together, starting to have these conversations about why I want to run for county commissioner, helping people identify and helping identify people who would support the campaign financially and through volunteers.
Of course.
Because it's not an inexpensive proposition. You sort of guesstimate about a $20,000 price tag to run a county commissioner race. And that was pretty close to what we ended up spending for this race. And then just sitting down and getting out there and helping people to see me in a different way, that they'd been seeing me as a volunteer in the community or working in the social service field, but sort of helping people see me in a different leadership role.
I can see how that would be. Can you walk us through what the beginning of your campaign and what it took to get all the way through to the end? Just a short synopsis?
Yeah, it took a lot of energy, not only from me, but the people, as people started to understand that I was running for county commissioner, because as soon as I filed, at the clerk's office, I put out a press release to all the papers. And I was a little nervous about the reaction from the community, but was really heartened by all of the overwhelming support that I really got. And so then it became really looking at a calendar and sitting down and saying, well, sort of backtracking out from May. What are there certain things that you have to do? You have to have mail pieces. You have to be at candidate forums. You need to be at a lot of events throughout that course of that time. You need to figure out when you can do door knocking. How do you get all your materials prepared? Campaign photos. You have to have things submitted in a timely fashion for the Secretary of State's office.
And your signage.
And my sign. Oh, yeah. I'm surprised I forgot about signage. Getting a design that really represented what you wanted to say, and actually, purchasing the signs and figuring out where they needed to be, and the sign ordinance for each community, and when they could be out, and who could be out getting the signs put up, and the sign, as it turned out to be a bit of a sign war towards the end, was
we saw some
frustrating. And so then it really comes down to the conversation with the community about what it is why you think that you're capable, and then what do you think you can accomplish, and looking for support. And I was just really pleased. I got the endorsement from the News Register, the Newburgh Graphic, and the Sheridan Sun. I was the only candidate that got all three out of the entire field of candidates for both positions. And I think that I did well in the candidate forums. So I had a real some optimism going into the May 20th primary, thinking that we would probably have a race to November, but it was a bit of a surprise ultimately what the outcome was.
So did your calendar logistics look a little messy?
It was very messy because trying to run a full-time campaign and a full-time job, and as you said, I have two daughters, so one of them was in her competition for cheerleading, so we were down in California for a bit for national cheerleading competition. Then I have a daughter who's a soccer and softball kid, and just trying to make sure that I'm investing my time with them, and then also keeping up with the responsibilities I have through my volunteer work. So I tried not to let too much sort of get pushed to the wayside.
So did you have to do a lot of research on the issues facing Yamhill County?
I didn't have to do as much as I think some other candidates had to, because I've worked for the county for 9 years.
Right.
So I probably come in with a different level of understanding of what the county does or doesn't do.
Right.
I think around the area of land use where I spent a little bit more time understanding the really dynamic conversations that have been going on in the county about land use. And those are really emotional decisions about how land is being used. So that, I think, was probably an area in which I spent most of my time really understanding. And sort of through the course of that, what I found to be very interesting is the concern that across the county people have for water. And we've had not much conversation throughout the candidates forum. It all became very centered on economic development, which, while that's really important for the community as a whole, the Yamhill County government doesn't have a big, huge role to play in economic development. But that became sort of the meat and potatoes of the campaign, which I found sort of to be interesting, that overshadowed the myriad of things that the county does as a whole.
So was the local dump issue, did that come up?
Yes. Well, the landfill certainly is a huge issue for many people. And and I tried to be very sensitive to that issue because as a county commissioner, it's a quasi-judicial position, so you make those land use decisions. And to really stay neutral, as a judge would need to,
Right.
I tried not to have any view that might sway somebody one way or the other, think that I took a particular position. Because frankly, to be able to sit down and say, oh, I'm for this or I'm against this, I couldn't possibly. I didn't have the benefit of all the information and the materials. I mean, there was a candidate who stood up and said, you know, I support the landfill, but they really didn't have the chance to sit down and read all the materials. So I tried to stay neutral about that particular issue because I didn't want to be disqualified as a
No, I can understand
in that position, a decision maker.
So what do you think that you've learned and gleaned from the experience of running as candidate for position 3?
Well, it's been really a fantastic experience. I think I didn't anticipate how much work it would take. Of course, that's not something I'd done before. I'd been involved in other campaigns, but only in certain pieces of it. And as the decision maker for how the campaign is run, you know, all the things sort of have to come through you. And I very early on when we were talking about signs, I said, I don't want to ever drive through this county and see a sign of mine in a right-of-way. And there were certain people who felt the right-of-way just seemed to be their domain, and signs just went wherever they wanted to. And I, in fact, pulled up a sign that I found in the right-of-way in Dundee. So there were just little things like that. I was very surprised at the lack of understanding what the general community understands the county commissioners do.
Right.
And the platform of some candidates that doesn't apply to the work of the county commissioner. So those were things that I found to be very interesting. But then ultimately, I met amazing people, Howie, in this community.
I'm positive.
Who, I think sometimes that you go around and you know everybody, and you've been here 20 years and been involved in a lot of things, and just some fabulous people who I have come away with a deeper friendship with now, who I didn't know before. I am so proud to say that I have a namesake goat named after me. She was born around the primary, so that was very exciting.
It's a Debra goat?
It's a Deb. She's named Deb.
Awesome.
So, but really, I think more than anything, it was a reminder to me is how amazing Yamhill County is. And you talked about my dossier in terms of what I've done in the community. I'm just like everybody else. There's a really high civic engagement in Yamhill County, which makes us a beautiful community. And it's easy to see some of those leaders who are in volunteer positions, but it's those day-to-day volunteers who are out helping their neighbors. They're just doing that missionary work to help make Yamhill County a better place. And it was a nice reminder because I've been in 9 years really focused on crime in Yamhill County.
Right.
So it can sort of skew your perspective and give you a filter and a lens that you forget about all that great stuff that's happening out in the community.
Well, I find that this community is probably one of the most compassionate, caring communities in the United States for being such a small rural community of under 100,000 people. I'm always amazed and always meeting new people that just seem to be so enthralled to be here, living in wine country in this rural community, and they give back to community in wonderful ways.
I agree. And I think where I find that to be very heartening is while the political process can be very polarizing, I think it's when we come around the issues of homelessness and hunger and inequity that we really find that we have some common ground, and that regardless of our political views, I think that that's where we can really come together. And that is wonderful. So I think that that's a real benefit to our community.
I think it is as well. I find it extremely exciting with everything that's going on with the Compass Center.
I agree.
So what do you feel are some of the more key issues facing Yamhill County having gone through all of this?
Well, I think because I'm a county employee, I see the county sort of twofold, that there's this inward-facing view of the county where commissioners are responsible for the budget and making sure that there's that the departments are getting what they need, that we're servicing the county in a really efficient but important ways. So the sheriff's office, that we have deputies on the road, public safety, that there's a full slate of prosecutors to be able to prosecute offenders and hold them accountable, that we have a juvenile department, that we have incredible services to folks with mental health needs and the disabilities, and that the veterans are getting served, that our roads are being paved. And so there's all of these things that the commissioners sort of need to look inward to, and priority setting and policy setting. But then there's also sort of that outward perspective for county commissioners, which is being ambassador for Yamhill County,
Yes.
sort of at the state and national level, helping the communities sort of come together on common issues, which I think Yamhill County, we also have a really strong network of cities, that the cities work really well together, and the county has a role to play in that. We're not we don't oversee the cities, but there's some things that we can do as a county that might be beneficial across the county-wide. So those are things that I think the county commissioner sort of look outward to the community. And then, but I think things that they'll be facing, and actually one of the things that I said was the biggest issue we're facing right now is who's going to be leading the county.
Exactly.
And Commissioner Springer's midway through his term, and now we have 2 new commissioners coming on. Kathy George has really invested so much in health and human services, and Commissioner Stern just really left a big imprint on our community.
Huge.
And so I think we're just going to see a shift, and we don't know what that shift will be. It depends on who is the winner out of position 1. But we don't know what's going to move forward. But with any of the decisions that those county commissioners are faced with, what I think you really want is somebody who's a critical thinker, who sort of is a broad visionary, but also can pull people together to have dialogue around really challenging critical issues. So that's what I was trying to sort of present as somebody who has those relationships built within the community. And that's, I think, what will be a challenge for new commissioners. And then you can easily identify things like land use or water or transportation infrastructure and the bypass and, budgetary issues. And we've been a historically very well-run fiscal conservative county, and that has seen us well. And I think that that's what we would have been moving into with what we need out of county commissioners. But we're positioned well financially, and so I think that we loosened our dependency on the ONC funds for the timber a number of years ago, with some, which was a real benefit to the county. So I think that what we look at down the pike, there'll be some problems that we don't really anticipate, but I think there will be perennial issues with land use and the tension between conservation and development, and then how does that impact with infrastructure and water resources. So I think it's a dynamic time in
Well, I
Yamhill
think
County.
it is as well. Boy, can you talk a little bit about job growth? I know that you said that maybe the commissioners aren't so involved in that, but Yamhill County really needs to have some job growth.
Well, and sort of what I mean about that is county commissioners don't create jobs.
Right.
But they can create and maintain a climate that is open to job growth. And the economic development, Grow Yamhill County, is a project that the county commissioners sort of undertook and has some momentum building. We're basically positioning Yamhill County to say to business, we have great places to build and to grow your business for businesses who want to come to Yamhill County and diversify. I think that diversification is a really important part of attracting business. But then also, what would it take for business who is already here to build their capacity? And what do we need? And we look at the bypass as a very easy to identify that that's a huge game changer for Yamhill County.
Yes.
Getting people and goods in and getting goods and people out.
Right.
So that I think is important. And helping cities also identify business that they can have come in. So like Sheridan had a business that came in, and it was the city of Sheridan who did the lion's share of bringing in this business, but then we're also looking at, the drones and the agricultural business, and Yamhill County is a significant agriculture business, so
Yes.
what can we do to help with capacity there? And those are some things that I think that we, as a county commissioner, would be able to do and to pay attention to.
Very good. Many endorsements were given to you when you ran. Would you feel comfortable about naming some of those for the viewers?
Yeah, well, I had, the official endorsements from Mary Stern, which meant a lot to me, given the fact that she's left this position and is much beloved commissioner, and that she felt that she was going to support me was an incredible gift to me. I felt really honored by that. And then retired Sheriff Lee Vasquez, who I've known and worked with since almost day one when I came into Yamhill County and worked at YCAP. He has been a big supporter and somebody that I could turn to for advice throughout, sort of a mentor, I would say, over all these years. And the Mayor Crawford from Dundee and city councilor there have endorsed me. But then along the way, it's been all the citizens who have said, I want to support you, and you can use my name, and you can, put a yard sign in. And then I got some big endorsements, I felt, from the newspapers. So I was really honored by not only saying, hey, we're endorsing Debra Bridges for this position, but why we're endorsing her is her long history of service to the community, her ability to just get into that office and hit the ground running, where other candidates have not been as invested in the community, that they felt that was a really a key component to my success to be a county commissioner. And then I received the endorsement from the Yamhill County employees, which really is an honor, because I think I understand how important our county employees are, and they really do hard work. And there's, government employees get a bad rap. It's just like every industry you can find.
It's everywhere.
But, you come, I could come into the office at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'd see 5 different people there. Or, I think generally people don't understand how much county employees really do give of themselves. I have a job, I'm on call 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Any moment I could be called in to do something. And so I felt really honored by, that they would put their support behind me. So,
Well, I work with a lot of Yamhill County employees as well, and I can tell you that they are ready, willing, and able all of the time. And they'll go the extra step to make things happen. And I think that they're beloved in this community because everyone can see the great work that they're doing. So it must have really been an honor for you
It was,
to receive that endorsement.
And I also felt a real responsibility to them to
Sure.
run as hard of a campaign as I could, because I think they have a lot invested in knowing that they would have a county commissioner who supported their work. When you have a candidate who is, as the News Register had quoted, disdain for government, and that their values are based on limited government. It's hard to understand where you cut back in a government without cutting back direct services, because an employee is a means for service to a citizen. We don't have employees that do nothing and sit around and
No.
So if you cut employees, you cut services. So I think that there was a real there was some anxiety there about who might come in as a decision maker, because all those people who work for the county and do their work, and the people who work with veterans, the people who work with the disabled community, and the people who work with the folks struggling with mental illness or addiction are so passionate about that work. I know we are with working with crime victims, that to know that if your position is cut is more important, that those folks are not getting your services, than, getting a paycheck. It's just sort of an interesting dialogue where this distrust of government has just been very pervasive. And at the county level, when, it's about services to the community. So we'll see. We'll see where we go.
I'm very excited to see where we go. What will you do from here forward? Will you stay involved?
I don't know how I can not stay involved. How I, it's interesting because going to the Compass Center meeting, the town hall, it just made me think about a lot of connections and things that I hadn't done in a while, and sort of that that caretaking and prevention
Yes.
that we can do for the community. That because I've been focused in crisis response, I sort of missed having that energy and that. That knowledge that what you're doing really has an impact on folks in a different way, because I know that what we do with crime victims is really
absolutely.
important. So, but there's just I have just a long list of things that I want to accomplish, and I have a really need and interest in being involved in hunger and security. I just it just breaks my heart to think about kids going to school. I bring food to the high school every month. Just so kids can have lunch. Those are things that I don't ever put down on my little list of things I do. I staffed the warming shelter in Newburgh this year, which was, I know I got more out of that experience than the guests that came and stayed. I don't know what I will be doing, but it will be community-based. I just know that that's where I am in my heart. And as my kids age, I have one in high school and I have a middle schooler, so my interest sort of can sometimes shift a little bit along what they're doing, but they also bring new ideas to my forefront. My youngest daughter was involved at Dornbecker, and that really got me interested in what was going on at Dornbecker. And then just this last year, I became more invested in Special Olympics because my oldest daughter is a cheerleader and they volunteer for Special Olympics, and that Newburgh plays a big role in the summer games there. And so I've been learning more about Special Olympics and the things that I can do to support that program. But I think there will be an endless list of opportunities. And the $1 million question on everybody's list, which I don't know if it's on yours, is will I run again? And I don't know the answer to that one.
Well, that was going to be my final question, but that's okay. There are a myriad of ways to stay involved, as you know. And with the last homeless count in January of 2014, out of the 1,217, we found that 500 of those were school-age children that were going hungry and then going in the morning without breakfast and going to school and trying to be educated. And what they're thinking about while they're sitting at their seat is, my belly won't stop rumbling and I'm hungry and I can't think because I don't have food. What do you think some of those, how can we fix some of those issues from the county point?
Well, I think awareness is a big issue because, even though I think that I sit in a position in the county and I'm really involved, there's a lot of things that I hadn't been thinking about when I went to the town hall meeting for the Compass Center. Thinking about where people are getting showers, where are they using the restrooms, where are they storing their possessions, which are minimal, but where do they store them? And we just had an experience at the county where somebody stashed their duffel bag underneath the bushes at the county. And while they probably thought that that was a relatively safe space, it also became a security issue for the county because we don't, in the day and age that we live in, we don't know what a bag means.
Right.
So the Oregon State Police bomb squad came and they detonated this bag, and this person's belongings and whatever they had were in it. I suspect were probably, some of them were at least damaged. But where do people store their belongings? How are we planning to take care of the homeless community? And I think that that's also a tricky situation for the community who are anxious about having more homeless people in McMinnville.
Yes.
And it seems to me that over the last, say, 5 years, I've seen an increase of people sleeping up and down 3rd Street, people hanging out. Where are they going to be during the day? It does make the shopkeepers and maybe some merchants and shoppers uncomfortable. I know that there's sometimes crime associated with that. And so that's a really, you have to have a holistic conversation about how we support those individuals. But I think if you get a county commissioner who's invested in that area, and is willing to be a liaison to that, Commissioner George has been really invested in the health and welfare of the county. I think that they have ways to draw resources or draw attention to issues.
Right. So back in 2006, when the county was mandated to do a end homelessness 10-year plan, and they implemented that plan in 2008.
Did they end homelessness?
No, but we're in 5 years now since then.
And have you seen
Yes,
progress? That's
we
great.
have seen some progress. Sea-Wish was brought forth, which is our community winter inclement shelter help through the winter cold months, when it drops between 32 and 30 for more than one day. We have 5 churches last year, 6 churches this year that are all have staffed volunteers that take in the homeless when they need to be taken in. And last year we had 40 days of cold, under 32 degrees, and we were able to shelter 537 different shelterings during that time frame. So yes, there are some there are more soup kitchens in Newburgh and Dundee now. There is a new one down in Willamina. There's new soup kitchens and feeding ministries happening because of the homelessness plan. There are other things that aren't happening as fast as they need to, but we're all aware of what those things are, and we're trying to incorporate those things into the Compass Center, which I think will take a lot of burden off of 3rd Street for the businesses. I think it will take a lot of burden off the police department of having to shuffle people from behind bushes and on private property. And as you talked about, the baggage that they carry. I know that we're looking into locker systems with a 90-day period that each person that's homeless would be given a lock. And so we are thinking about all of these things. Toilets for after hours in the downtown corridor, one that's at least open 24/7, 365. Not only for the homeless to use, but also for our tourists that are coming into wine country and touring this magnificent town of ours, coming down 3rd Street, which looks like a Norman Rockwell painting to most people. So I know that I've got about 30 seconds. So thank you so much for coming.
Well, thanks for having me.
We're so sad that you weren't elected this year, but that doesn't mean that in the future that you might not run again. As you said, it's up in the air and you just don't know yet.
That's correct.
But thank you so much, Debra.
Thanks, Matt.